I have all the tips you need to make a successful angel food cake, which is essentially a meringue baked with just a little bit of flour. So let me start off by getting those dry ingredients ready. What I need to do is sift cake and pastry flour, and it is important that you use a cake and pastry flour, which is a finer grind, a lower protein content, to ensure that you keep your volume of your angel food cake so it's airily fluffy and light, and also that it stays nice and tender. Now what I do is I sift that cake and pastry flour with my granulated sugar. So of course granulated sugar is a little more coarse, and as I'm sifting it, it's going to break up those tiny little fine cake and pastry flour pieces. And part of that success, see how many lumps are in cake and pastry flour? This is why you have to sift it. And not only am I sifting it once, I'm going to sift it twice. But back to what I was sharing about sifting the sugar and the flour together, what it means is when I'm folding that into my whipped egg whites, I won't have a problem of flour clumping up within the meringue as I'm folding it in, because that sugar is there dissolving and protecting the meringue from the flour lumps. So now I'm ready to sift again, and hopefully we'll see a lot fewer lumps. You don't need baking powder or baking soda. Look at that, so much better. No added leaveners are needed because you're simply relying on your meringue for the lightness in this cake. I'll set this aside, flours aside. Now let's get those eggs separated. I've got my mixing bowl, 8 large eggs. And because we store our eggs in the fridge in North America, I've immersed them in hot tap water so that way they come up to room temperature. Because an egg white at room temperature will whip to a higher volume than a cold egg. And also you want to make sure your sugar dissolves into those egg whites. So I've got a bowl for my shells, bowl for the yolks. If you need to freeze your egg yolks because you don't have plans for them, what you do is stir in half a teaspoon of sugar for every 1 yolk that you're freezing. Then you just put them in a container. And when you do thaw them in the fridge to use again, they will be nice and smooth, and you just weigh out your egg yolks to know that you're adding 1 or 2 or 3 to your recipe. Ooh, gotta watch that yolk. And it's got away from me. You don't have to worry about draining the water from your soaking eggs. A few water droplets in egg whites won't hurt it, won't compromise the volume. It's fat you worry about. A little piece of broken yolk or residual fat on your bowl. If you're unsure, you can wipe your bowl with a little bit of lemon juice or white vinegar. And that is 8 egg whites. I've got my whip attachment. You can use electric beaters, of course. And I have 2 ingredients to add before I start whipping. Some cream of tartar, which is essentially acidity in powdered form, and a tiny bit of salt. It's very important. It's a small measure, only 1/8 of a teaspoon. So 1/8 of a teaspoon for 8 egg whites, that is plenty. If I needed more salt in the recipe for flavor balance, what I would do then is not add it to the egg whites, I would add it to the flour instead, so it gets folded in at the very end. I'll whip these up on high speed until they're nice and frothy, and then I'll add my icing sugar. While I normally don't pre-sift my icing sugar if I'm making something like royal icing, For this, I want to give this angel food cake every opportunity to be as fluffy as it can be. So I pre-sifted my icing sugar. So how can you tell when it's time to start adding your sugar? Frothy foamy can mean lots of things. Now, I don't want you to worry if you add your sugar early on in the whipping process. It's not going to compromise the volume or the strength of the meringue you make. It just may take a little longer to get there. But I did stop now because you can see that my foamy egg whites have kind of lost that buttery yellow color to them. So it's beyond, it's not quite meringue, but it's beyond liquid at this point. So I won't add my icing sugar on high speed. And now that it's in there, I can turn it back up to high speed to whip it to a medium peak. Let's take a look at these egg whites and see their state. They've still got movement to them, and lifting your beaters or your whip attachment tells you where it is. We are so close to a medium peak. When you've got a partial folding peak to your meringue, then you know you have medium peak. If it folds right over, it's a soft peak, and if it stands straight up, well, that's a stiff peak. I'm about 20 seconds away from the perfect medium peak. Just want to give it a couple more seconds. There we go. If you're new to the world of meringues and making cakes using meringue or whipped egg whites in any form, you may find it surprising that we call for a medium peak, and that's typical to most cake recipes as opposed to a stiff peak. And that's because at a medium peak, our egg whites still have room to grow in the heat of the oven. They haven't been stretched to their maximum volume because what happens to air when you put it in the oven? It expands, and that pushes those air bubbles around the egg white. So we want to give them a little room, a little stretchiness. Now let's look at that peak. We got a nice curl, but yet it's got stability to it. It's not changing its motion or shape, so I know I'm in good shape. I'm going to add just a little bit of vanilla. An angel food cake is supposed to be almost like a background cake. I love serving it with fresh fruits in season and a little bit of cream. And now it's time to add those dry ingredients that I double sifted, and I'm going to use my whip attachment. You can use your electric beaters if you want, or switch to a whisk. But what this does, and I'm adding these 2 ingredients in 2 additions, is the whip attachment pulls the dry ingredients through the meringue without damaging it. Now it will soften up. I don't want you to be worried when you start whisking your flour into your meringue, because remember, this is half sugar as well. So that sugar is going to start dissolving into the meringue and liquefying a little bit. So we're being gentle by using the right tool. So that means you can go quite quickly, because time is also a bit of an enemy when it comes to a meringue. See how it's smoothing out? And now I can add the remaining flour and sugar mixture. But had I not sifted those 2 together, I'd be struggling with lumps of flour in this meringue. So it's not even an issue. Now I want to switch to a spatula just to make sure I'm pulling this batter right from the bottom of the bowl. And if you no longer see any dry ingredients, and I'm not seeing that, then you know your batter is fully mixed. So this is ready for my pan. When you're baking an angel food cake, you want to use an angel food cake pan, sometimes called a tube pan, for multiple reasons. You need the straight sides so the cake can climb, but also come out of the pan easily, because guess what? You do not grease this pan. Oil is the enemy of meringue, and if we were to grease this pan, well, the cake would rise up and then slide down the sides of the pan on the outside and the inside. The tube in the center serves two purposes. It allows heat to get into the center of the cake so it cooks quickly but also evenly, and very important, and this is a two-piece angel food cake pan, some are one piece. The tube is higher than the outside of the cake pan itself. What's critically important is when this cake comes out of the oven, you immediately turn it upside down on your cooling rack, and that creates a gap underneath so that air can get in there and cool the cake quickly. But what happens is your cake is stuck in the pan, but it's stretching those fragile yet cooked egg whites, pulling them down, which essentially is up when you cool the cake. So it guarantees you have a fluffy, spongy, evenly textured angel food cake. Enough about that, I have to get the batter in the pan. So it's a lot softer now than when I just simply had the icing sugar in with the egg whites, because that granulated sugar has dissolved, and you can see there's a nice glossiness. I'm trying to do this as gracefully as possible. Not always a success there. Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Now I'll just use my spatula, get every last bit of batter. Spread to level the batter in the pan, because it won't move, it won't liquefy before it bakes, but it will come up about 3/4 to the top of the pan. So I've preheated my oven to 325. So that causes the lift in the egg whites without overcooking the outside of the cake. And you might be surprised, a cake of this size only takes 35 minutes. Remember, how much of this cake is air after all? In it goes. And here it is, our angel food cake, now completely cooled. And I'd say that took a good hour to 90 minutes, depends on the weather outside. So now we need to extract this angel food cake from its pan. Oh, I love to see that. That's a bit of my reveal moment. It makes me just as happy. Hopefully it makes you happy. So you can see that full volume of the angel food cake is retained. That's the whole key of cooling it upside down. Now, to get it out of the pan, it can depend on the finish of your pan. I just take a palette knife, run it along the inside, and then I'm gonna get a smaller palette knife just to get into that center. You can even use a bamboo skewer. You don't have to go right to the bottom, but a good tap when you turn the cake out, and it should come out just fine. Now that the cake is cooled completely, it's not delicate, it's not fragile, and there, the outside ring comes out, and I'll just take my palette knife and run just across the top of the cake, the bottom of the pan, and there it is. A beautiful, oh, I'm so happy with it, a beautiful angel food cake. Let me transfer this over to a platter now. And it's up to you if you want to serve it flat side top or turn it over. It is totally up to you. I do like to add a little bit of icing sugar. Not too much. The cake is sweet enough, of course. The great thing about an angel food cake is that it stays fresh for days. With the sugar in it and that volume, it just really stores well, it freezes well. And even if you have leftovers, a great thing to do, if you're barbecuing because you're serving this in the summertime, a quick little grill, honestly, 10 seconds on each side, and it toasts the angel food cake and it makes it taste like toasted marshmallow. To serve that with grilled fruits, oh, it's fantastic. But I'm going to dish this up with cream and strawberries. Whatever fruit is in season suits angel food cake. Dollop of cream. A little lemon curd would be nice. And there you have it. All the tips you need to make a successful angel food cake. Serve it with berries and cream, and both you will feel good, and so will the guests you serve it to. Have a great day. My cake fell down.